you try to do that artificially and just say, hey, Torrin, go sit and talk to that kid, it's really hard to create that relationship. But when you create opportunities like the Leading Men Fellows, when you create a network of professionals, when you create in our family engagement parent and teacher conferences that are student-led, where the child is sitting down and walking the parent through the report card, it creates an authentic relationship. And that's what we're really striving for. So we're not going to stop with mentoring, but we realize that that's not always the answer for every child. That's not always the opportunity that every adult is actually looking for. But what we're trying to get at is the thing that fathers bring into the community. So when we reach out in these parent-teacher conferences, when we create PTAs and coach principles on how to cultivate this, we make sure that we do donuts with dad and the father-daughter dance, because creating these real opportunities for people to have connections with the men in the community, be it a blood relative or simply someone that they've been able to connect to over something that matters to both parties, is the thing that is the moment that the relationship starts to make a difference for the child. And from, I'm sure Torrin will attest as he has. I really encourage you guys to listen to his story on NPR. It makes a difference for us as adults as well. And as a grown man who's raising a couple of kids, there have been a couple of reminders in my career of how I can do better at home for my own children. So I'm happy to take those lessons home and humble enough to know that I don't have it all figured out. I learned stuff at work, and being a parent also helps me bring a different perspective to work as well. So we invite the entire community to connect with us around any of these programs. You can feel free to reach out to me, or if you have Tony's information, he'll put you in touch with me. We welcome your input, because one thing that I know the Chancellor recognizes, and we recognize as well, is that we're not done. There's a lot more work to do. And if you think we're going to close the achievement gap with a couple of one-off programs and a targeted effort here, that stuff is important. But really, we're talking about the majority of our student population, the majority of our district, and it's got to be the entirety of our system that is actually thinking about the questions of equity, the lens of race and ethnicity, and the drive towards excellence for every student, every person making that effort is how we'll get there.
Can you talk just a bit? I mean, I know this is maybe a bit off the subject, but you just mentioned closing the achievement gap.
Sure.
Can you talk a bit about the Chancellor's ideas with respect to that and what you're looking at right now?
Sure. So we just launched our strategic plan, and I shouldn't say we launched it, we're refining it based on a lot of community input. And what was heartening, actually, in the listening sessions that we did throughout the city, we would come down here to Ward 7 or Ward 8, and folks would say, we got to look at this achievement gap. And you're not going to hear that on the other side of town, but we need to tell you, and you need to hear this. What was heartening is that we actually did hear it on the other side of town. So there is an awareness in the DC community as a whole that the disparity between what's happening for young men of color, especially young women of color right behind them, in comparison to white students, in comparison to students in more affluent communities, is of great concern. So in our strategic plan, and you're going to see me looking at the ceiling because we got to remember this. Like, we literally just had a retreat
say that that's a goal, but that happened?
So our graduation rate has increased by about 20 points over the past 5 years. So we're around 75%, which is remarkable. It's the fastest increasing graduation rate in the nation. What happened at Blue, I've never heard of. When I went to
well, that's what I'm asking you. Are you saying that every kid who applied
who graduated from Blue applied to college? That in itself is an achievement because it tells you what the culture.
Every graduate applied. I'm just trying. I just want to drill down.
Yeah. So let me stop deviating. So the graduation rate increased by 20 points. We've got about a 75% graduation rate in the district. At Blue, every graduate applied to college, and everyone was accepted, which is both the accepted. I wasn't even thinking about that because that's
pretty,
somewhat beyond our control. Yeah. But the fact that every family or every child chose to at least investigate that pathway, given the trends that we've seen and the expectations that sometimes people give to our children or that they have for themselves, it's incredibly exciting. And that pushes us as adults because if they're thinking, hey, maybe I can do this, then we can't put them out there in a setup kind of situation. It's our responsibility to make sure that that application has a chance and that enrollment has a chance for sustenance so that they can actually matriculate all the way to a college degree. So these are the drives that if you create a culture that is college going, then the students and the parents and the teachers and ourselves all start to reflect on what does that mean? How do we close that achievement gap if they've applied? So it means that we have to make sure that every student has the opportunity to take a multitude of AP classes because those are the classes that are most likely to introduce them to rigor and get them ready for college. And again, that doesn't mean that can't be like, well, if you want to stay late or come extra early or get in this concurrent enrollment program across town, you have to have that opportunity. You have to be able to stumble out of your doorstep and fall into that opportunity when you enroll in your neighborhood school. Sure, Dr. Colson.
Yeah, I want to ask a few specific questions because the achievement gap is a big issue, but a lot of times when we discuss that, we talk about it in general terms, and that's because it's a concept that's not very well defined, and the drivers of the achievement gap is usually not very well defined. So we know that one of the drivers is the monetary investment that's going to each student. There are public schools in DC where there's a lot more money being invested in each child than other schools. And some of that comes from the structure of the school itself. Some of it comes from the contribution of the families to the school and into that individual child. So resource equity is a big problem. Yeah. So I want to know what we're doing about that. Also, and this is probably associated with resource equity, and I read the reports on Blue and definitely applaud that. But we also have to make sure that the students who are and just to be completely honest about the numbers, it's not that difficult to get every child accepted into college. There are open enrollment colleges, and so it's something to celebrate. But we also want to make sure that the students are going to college with the skills that they need to complete. So that being said, if we're pushing them into college, we also have to make sure that the schools have physics, that they have pre-calculus, that they have the types of courses that are in these other schools. We also have to make sure that they have AP classes, because the reality is we have students on the upper Northwest, they're graduating with all these credits going into college, and we have students in other sections of the city that are going to college, and they need about 12 credits worth of remedial classes before they even get into their real curriculum. So that's another issue. And then a final issue is that in a lot of public schools in the more affluent areas, they have teachers that have many years of experience. that are qualified and certified to teach the classes that they are teaching. And in other parts of the city, we rely heavily on alternative teacher certification programs. We rely heavily on teachers who are teaching classes that they're not equipped to teach, and we rely heavily on teachers that are within their first and second year. So these are some of the specific drivers of that achievement gap that I want to know if there are strategic efforts to remedy.
The resources, remedial.
I got it.
Curriculum.
What was the third one? I just want to make certain I got it. What was the third one?
Resource allocation. I would say overall curricular rigor and broader.
Teacher qualifications.
And teacher qualifications. So on teacher qualification, our retention rate of our effective and highly effective teachers is actually, despite another story about Blue, which is really an aberration, the retention of our effective and highly effective teachers in our, what we call our 40 lowest achieving schools, is actually higher than it is at the other 70-something schools. Part of the reason for that is related to your first question of resource allocation. So if you're effective and highly effective, upon coming aboard, and then when you are evaluated as effective or highly effective, you can get a salary bonus up to $20,000. And that's not an annual bonus. That's in your base salary, which does a lot for retention.
Well, how about the story that we read in the paper about
The turnover at Blue?
Yeah.
Yeah. This was a tough year for Blue. I mean, there's just no getting around it. But that story was a story in part because it is an aberration. Dr. Reeves has done incredible work. And honestly, it's not something that I've worked closely with. It's a little bit confusing to me, and I haven't quite gotten to the bottom of it. Because the story about the college applications and acceptance says something about the school culture that has to be positive and inspiring for those young people. And at the same time, this story about teacher turnover has to be demoralizing for both the young people and the adults. The fact that they both happened at the same time is a little bit dissonant for me, and I don't have a clear answer on it. What I do know is that I can say that Blue is an aberration because our aggregate numbers, most of those 40 lowest achieving schools are unfortunately in Ward 7 and Ward 8, have a retention rate that's as good or better than their peer schools. The question of teacher qualification and alternative certification, I think that's valid, and probably part of what happens at Blue is that some Blue and other schools is that the work is hard because we're asking these teachers to get the kids ready for college, and unfortunately sometimes they're coming in with deficits, and the achievement gap is bigger than what happens in the walls of the schools. So we're actually responding to the community and whatever issues exist in the community as a whole, and it's really demanding. And that's why we add that premium bonus for those teachers to build a retention, because it is hard work, and we haven't solved all of those problems yet. The other thing I was going to say about Dr. Tolson, next time I'm going to try to remember to ask you questions first, because I consider you to be the expert. I don't know why you're asking me, but I can tell you what we're doing at DCPS. So we did actually, a few years ago, ensure that every high school had, I believe it's 8 AP classes. I have to double check that so that students can take those courses. As an educator, my next question is, so let's look at our pass rates in those classes, right? There's always another thing. So before they couldn't even take the AP classes. Now they can take them. We want to make sure that the classes are of sufficient rigor so that they are getting 3s, 4s, and 5s. They can take those credits into school with them. As far as what we know it takes to be successful, when we look at Paul Tuff's work about why children succeed, and we're looking at things like grit and resiliency and problem solving, we actually build that into the curriculum. We do it through restorative justice. We do it through school climate initiatives. We do it in the early years through curricula like Tools of the Mind and Responsive Classroom, where we're engaging the whole child, not just the child as a reading score or a math score. And then your first piece about resource allocation, when we look at our 40, what were originally our 40 lowest achieving schools, the per student investment at those schools is about $1,000 per student higher than it is in the other 70-something schools. What we can't take into account is the fact that a child coming in third grade has 30% more or less vocabulary based on the background of their parent. About a PTA who has a fundraiser with a silent auction, people buying, Redskins boxes for $600,000 versus a PTA that's trying to get together its first bake sale. I can't account for that financially. As a district, we have multipliers for students based on their family's level of income, their neighborhood, and we're looking at augmenting that even further. There are considerations that whether or not race is legal that are closely related to the factors that drive the achievement gap. And if we can build our budget models around that, and I know that's something that Chancellor Wilson is looking into, we'll be able to push that per student allocation even further.
Thank you.
I want to make a couple of statements. There are some organizations working in the community with the school system that are having some relative success. Ballou isn't the only school. It's a great school. I want you to take a look at Phelps also. We found that using a model of boyhood to manhood rites of passage has a more effective look forward for developing quality young men of purpose and promise. 28 young men crossed over at Phelps, 97% graduated. That look that you all haven't gotten to yet has the Council of Elders. It has young men being worked in a group mentoring set, but manhood has to be taught in stages.
I'm making
and
a note.
Also, the fact that you have more women teachers than men teachers, you need to look at having fathers and men who are trained and certified to assist, to enhance what's not there. They got to see us to be us. And so I want to share that with you in a positive way. We also want to show that love, engagement, connection, enlightenment leads to empowerment. So no matter what program you bring, if you don't love our children, it's not going to work. And so there has been some disconnects with some teachers who don't understand. One other thing we want to share with you is the 40 developmental assets. And I want to have that conversation with the chancellor. That works. If a child doesn't have food to eat, how can he learn when he gets in school? If his mom and dad aren't home and he got a bad situation in the community, how then can academics be successful? And so we need to look at the assets that surround each one of these kids. That's what we did at Phelps. If they had a problem on the other side, we had people that would deal with that and help them to reach another level of competency and skills that will help their academic success and progress. So I haven't had a conversation yet with the chancellor, but I represent also not only the commission, but the DC Fatherhood Coalition. We're doing a lot of things, representing a lot of organizations, but we're very, very clear that the boyhood to manhood look, as opposed to just the mentoring look, is a more effective look for the school system. But that requires two things. It requires trained, certified, licensed individuals. It says in the Bible, study to show thyself approved. You gotta have somebody all ready to go. You can't make this up, and research based.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? Or commissioners?
Well, I like to speak for, I'm Fahim Abdul-Salam, and I currently I work with CSOSA, Court Services and Defense Division Agency. Of course, for those who don't know, CSOSA is the arm that deals with probation, parole, and supervisor DCs here in the District of Columbia, those who are DC co-offenders. And one of the things from an educational perspective that we notice is that we have a lot of two. Okay. A lot of them are coming home from incarceration, being incarcerated, and we tend to send them maybe to like the loose stay or something of that nature to try to, shore up their academic and things of that nature, so that they can be progress to go, hopefully, go on to maybe UDC and maintain their academic standing, at least to be able to achieve something academically. We're trying to figure out, is there any, I guess, a plan, or are there any agenda items that are geared specifically for those persons who have histories in the arena of incarceration? And how can we open up a school that would actually promote redeveloping the mindset again because these are persons who were boys who became men while they were incarcerated, yet their mentality, their maturation process has still remained what it was prior to them going into the institutions. So we're just trying to figure out, is there any plan for a school that can say those persons who have been incarcerated, we can send you over here with a design curriculum that's prepared for you all and specifically for you to not only get academia, but to also receive some type of employment or some type of stipend while they're achieving their academic problems.
It sounds like the Promise program. My Angelo has a group of young men. As a matter of fact, I'm looking to recruit some young men for Ward 7, from 17 to 25, who fall in that category. But my Angelo operates a program called the Promise program. And some of my men, there's one of them right there, Kwako Atiba, go in and train these men while they're in school, trying to get their GED, but also dealing with family, children, and all of the barriers that would keep them. So I would suggest you might want to contact Tony Upson and see me after the program. I'll turn you on.
So, Mr. Baker, can you address that?
So I don't know of any plans right now to open any schools for an adult population beyond what we have with what used to be called the alternative schools, and we now call the opportunity academies. They are designed for grown-ups who are, parents working, getting their degree at the same time as they are pursuing their education. I agree with you. I think there is a unique experience for the population you're describing, and in all honesty, I'm not sure that we're serving them right now, so that's something we'll have to look into.
So they're called the Opportunity Schools?
Yeah, so Ballou Stay, Roosevelt Stay, Luke Seymour, Wash Met, there's one I'm forgetting, are our Opportunity Academy.
Are they after hour?
The Stay schools are. Luke Seymour is mostly day hours, but has some flexibility, and Wash Met is day hours. We're also opening an Opportunity Academy for middle grade students, because what we're finding is you have that 14-year-old who technically could be in 5th grade or could be in 9th grade, and neither one's a good match. And if we let either pathway progress, then they both go down. So we've got to create a space for them to get back on track quickly. And similar to what Mr. Abdul Salam was saying, just even at that age, they've got to see the pathway. Because in 2 or 3 years, they're going to be able to choose whether or not they even want to go to school at all. So if they can't really start thinking about credit attainment and seeing myself walking across the stage in a reasonable amount of time, then they're going to opt out. So we really have to create valid pathways and opportunities for those kids.
Any other questions?
If I could just
Sure, you can follow up.
in 30 seconds, a follow-up that I think would be exceptionally well. A lot of times when the guys are incarcerated, they will participate in GED type of coursework, and then when they're released, they will say, I have acquired my GED. But then when we look further into the matter, you haven't actually acquired the GED, you just started the coursework. So if we can have some type of dynamics that says, hey, we're going to pick up from where you left off when you were incarcerated, that coursework that's needed a tremendous help as well, because it's difficult to, now that they're back on in the community again, it's very difficult to say, hey man, start all over again from this process and not be able to have them take what they've already accomplished during the period of incarceration, take that piece and attach it to something to make it easier for them to actually attain the goal of achieving that degree.
I'm quite certain you're aware that we've got the adult literacy programs around the city, but those are more self-selection. In other words, they have to select to be a part of that program that may be run by a nonprofit in the city.
Right.
But,
And that,
but
Mr.
your
Chairman,
point is very important.
That's a good point. A lot of programs that the government tries to run are better run by sustainable community resources that are funded by the government. And we're trying to get the government to see that some of these programs are just not going to work because you don't have the face forward and the touch with individuals such as the ones you're talking about. I worked with CSOS for 17 years, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But we got to have a program, so we got to work this together and see how we can find that opportunity for these young men.
I want to thank you, Mr. Finkel, for showing up tonight and giving this presentation and update, because you were here at one of our earlier commission meetings. So we want to extend the offer again, maybe next year, given that the chancellor will just be finishing his first year, I guess. But we very much appreciate it.
I'll relay that, and I actually have some good notes here to take back to a couple of teams, and I'll follow up with Principal Jackson and some other folks.
And please relay the thought that we'd like to have the chancellor himself.
I will do so. Absolutely.
Yep.
Wait, what are you saying? What are you saying?
Yeah, sure, please.
How you doing? I'm Gary Speck. I'm the director down at PR Harrison University District. So I wanted to know, I remember a few years back, or maybe further back now, but there was an initiative where we were getting teachers who would reach highly effective and offering maybe salary increases or bonuses for them to come and work in some of our lower performing schools. Do you have any updates or any data on the teachers that either accepted that or how, if they've helped increase the scores in those schools?
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of data. We do. Here's what I do know: that if we are able to exit or evaluate out in an appropriate fashion a teacher who is underperforming, they are more than likely to be replaced with a teacher who is effective or highly effective. So when we're sometimes that teacher churn is exactly what we need, because the spin is going higher and the quality of instruction is rising with it. The data that we have on teacher retention and even on our exit interviews with teachers is that the salary is an incentive to stay, and that the support and structures we have for teachers are incentives to stay. They're not leaving because they don't feel supported. They're not leaving because they're unfairly compensated. More than likely, it's a personal choice about where they want to go with their career or a family type choice. So I think we're stabilizing the faculty in our lower achieving schools, and we're also increasing the quality.
Thank you, Mr. Finkel. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Doug, you want to begin introducing the guests and the plaques that we want to.
Sure. Right before, if we can, I failed to mention up front, Miss Marie Williams is here from the Hill Harper Foundation, well-known actor, his foundation. The program is called Manifest Your Destiny, and they have the upcoming 9th Annual Summer Empowerment Academy. And that program offering was broadcast through the Executive Office of the Mayor for various commissions to get involved. And so we took up the challenge of getting involved. And so Ms. Marie Williams is here. She can just make a brief announcement on that program.
Absolutely.
Is that okay? Yes.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Mari Williams, and I'm with Manifest Your Destiny Philanthropist Foundation. I'm so excited to be here. I've heard a lot of great.
Would you stand
Would
up
you stand
and
up, please?
project a bit more? Give us the dates of the program again.
The date is July 31st through August 4th. And
Thank you.
9 a.m.
What's the location?
at Howard University.
Where?
Very good location.
Where on Howard campus?
So the College of Arts and Sciences are sponsoring us to be there.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Duggar, I'm gonna. Okay, that's fine. Is everybody here? All the individuals here?
Yes, everyone's here.
Why don't you basically explain?
Sure. So, as was mentioned earlier, the Commission on Father and Boys became operational in June 2015, and so this month, June of 2017, marks 2 years of existence for us. So we have been celebrating kind of the whole month, doing a series of events throughout the community, and along the way, we've had the engagement of several major organizations and institutions in the city. So we have probably on a quarterly basis now an interagency group that comes together and meet with us and give us all the program information and statistical data and various aspects of their agencies that connect the father and the boys services for some kind of. And so we're recognizing some of those agency partners tonight for their work with us. In addition to that, we've had significant stakeholders in the community that have worked with us on major public-facing events where we've engaged communities, particularly in overlooked and underserved neighborhoods. And those agencies have really helped us tremendously in making our events successful. And so we're recognizing those organizations as well tonight with plaques and recognition.
Okay. We can start with the first individual, Darius Baker, on behalf of the University of the District of Columbia, supported the overall agency mission and goals of enhancing the lives of all men and boys in the District of Columbia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy E. Bennett with the Washington Bar Association. Dr. Tune Boda. And I think Mr. Gray is here representing Dr. Boda.
So it is fair to say probably many know Dr. Boda. He is
several
yes,
missions.
absolutely, but he is a big supporter of this commission out in Department of Human Services. Well, the Department of Human Services has been big supporters of us, a number of them. But Dr. Boda has just been tremendous. So he certainly deserves recognition.
Lieutenant Commander Jonathan Scheffler.
Right in the middle.
Your award.
Right here. That's all right. That's all right.
So each year the Coast Guard, they are tireless in coming out, supporting our community events with tents, almost anything we ask. I mean, they come in with the real hardware. They're almost like more serious than MPD, but we really appreciate you guys.
Thank
We want to do more, okay?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
And there will be opportunity for you to do more too.
We're about 1,000 hours a month in the community.
Yeah.
14,000 people moving in next door. So I hear that's right there. That's our headquarters right across the street. So that's DHS's headquarters. And right now we're at 7 different schools. We're doing Boys and Girls Clubs, homeless shelters, veterans homes, anything that needs help. And Forest Fathers and Boys and Tony has been a great kind of champion. We can do more if we're asked. And so,
That's fantastic. So
You can
you
do
definitely need to listen
Oh, I
to
heard
that
him.
one.
I heard
to know that.
I heard it.
Absolutely, thank you. And now you, Mr. Pinker. Mr. Pinker has been here on a couple of occasions to provide information to us, and we want to thank him for that. Mr. Dusson. He's also been here on a couple of occasions to provide information to us, and we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And I just wanted to accept this also on behalf of our director, Nancy Ware, and our deputy director, James Berry, because without them approving for me to be a part of the process, it would not be happening, as well as my associate director, Jasper Walmart. So thank you so much.
Jasper.
Thank you.
Those are all my people. Yep.
Edward Samurai Wilson. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
So, Kappa Lambda Chi fraternity was very instrumental in our last event, and they showed up with the uniforms on, and they probably had 20 brothers standing strong.
In the heat.
In the heat. Yes.
Very much appreciated.
Thank you very much. I want to ask Timmy to come back up real briefly. Timmy, come up. Because I didn't see any words necessarily about Timmy and her service. So, Bar Association, Timmy is a lawyer. I think the legislative director for Councilmember Brandon Todd. I want to say to the commissioners, I forgot to bring the letter of recognition from his office that he gave to the commission. So we do have that in the office recognizing our work. But her legislative experience and skills have been tremendous. She's working behind the scenes to get us some additional authority and resources legislatively. We will talk more about that. But she is just awesome in terms of how she works with this commission. And let me say, commissions that serve the African American community. So she's working very closely with us and the Commission on African American Affairs. So we're trying to get some balance of resources and leveraging some power like other commissions. And so Timmy is really behind the scenes doing the technical stuff. So I just want to recognize her for doing that. Awesome.
Is that it?
Okay, no, we have one person from child support. Come on up. I didn't know child support had a representative. Nida mentioned that
Thank you.
they would send someone. So
And the child support officer attorney.
Is that it right there?
Yeah, Office Attorney General's child support at on a couple of occasions gave presentations to our group. As a matter of fact, about an incident a couple of months ago, Ms. Young and Ms. Young.
yes.
Okay, right here. Benita Rice and Lisa Young and James Blueford from Office Attorney General Child Support Division. They made presentations to us and provided some helpful information in terms of their role in the community now with respect to Parliament. So we appreciate it.
Great. So as we now can get a group shot, I think we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone who received
Yep. And we do have a reception
all the
after that once
commissioners this time.
once the chair closes
we
the meeting.
have a reception outside.
No, it's right.
Oh. Right back.
Yeah, would all the commissioners come forward?
How you want to do this, Mr. Chairman?
So we may have to double up maybe a bit. You think
Why don't the
we?
ladies go in front? Yeah. Well, no, well.
We might have to circle in some, so chairs, oh, you want the chairs now?
Yeah, that might.
That might work.
Ladies. Yeah.
And hold your flag with,
Yeah.
Can we get a chair for the chair?
Close it up.
Progress. Is there one official camera that we should be looking at?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I think,
Mr. Chairman, I want to call a point of order before you break this meeting.
Just a few final remarks, point of order, Chair, Mr. Malone.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I want to share some information with you as the chairman of Special Initiatives. A lot of things are going on since we last met. We need to catch up. First of all, the American Psychological Association had a conference on vulnerable boys and men. The commission was present, and some devastating, outstanding information was shared. I will submit this for the record, but this is the latest research on the condition of men and boys, especially health, psychological, emotional, and social. 80 leaders from across the nation flew in for this conference. Next, I wanted to share with you in the Liberator magazine that the state of Ohio was sued by they were sued because they collected $175 million of child support over and above what was necessary. And so our groups had to go in to rectify that, and it's been sent to trial court. So we got to make sure that we represent the fathers that we serve the right way, okay? So that's happening right now. Secondly, I want to make sure that you got a copy of the Washington Informer. There's 3 articles out. One says, Black men debunk false notions of absentee fathers, because when the history of fatherhood was written, they said there were no black fathers anyway. That's not true. There was a grandfather, there was an uncle, there was the neighbor. There were different men in that situation that helped many of these young men to be successful. Here's an article, get it, in the Washington Informer. Lastly, the Department of Education called top leaders from across the nation last week on, where's the education man? Fathers and families in education. There's some money getting ready to come out that's going to be available for working with fathers and families. I'd like to share that information. And so I just want to make sure that we're up on what's going on, not just in our community, what's happening surrounding our community. Also, last month in Prince George's County, they started the Prince George's County Commission for Fathers, Men, and Boys. As a result of the work we've done here, we were able to convince them to start another commission. This commission should be a blueprint for the rest of the nation. So how we get it done here is going to be a tipping action for the rest of the nation. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you.
My report is submitted on the record, and I will turn over the paperwork.
Thank you. A motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second. All approved? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Fantastic job there, Mr. Lawrence.
Put one of these on your car.
Postpone the bill. And, you know, we were initially getting excited about it. And now we don't even have to get it up or down. The thing about it is, you get past it,